last gasp Cozzy goal breaks blue hearts. It means the Dogs are still alive in the finals race and the Cats sew up the minor premiership against Gold Coast. Hello and welcome to the round so far, brought to you by Amy. I'm Riley Beveridge. This is Kane Cornes. Kane, we've just watched an absolute thriller play out at the MCG. It was decided by a Cozzy Pickett goal with 11 seconds to go.
Unbelievable. What a game of footy it was at the G. You thought Melbourne were gone and you just got a feel for Carlton, but they made a number of mistakes. But this was Cozzy Pickett absolutely just keeping on the move, getting to the front. Unbelievable one-hand pick-up and then throwing it onto his boot with about 12 seconds to go. As you see the clock ticking down there, I think it stops at 11. And Melbourne hang on with an unbelievable performance. But for Blues fans, they're going to have to do it next week and do it the hard way, but they had that game in their grasp, and some of the games we've seen this year have been unbelievable, none more so than that finish.
They were 11 seconds away from confirming their place in the top 8. You mentioned they made a lot of mistakes. Run me through this, because this is with a minute and a half to go. They're a point up. Charlie Curnow takes this mark. From here, they've got to just be thinking about taking time off the clock. They do a lot right, but where does it go wrong?
Shouldn't lose from here. So Harry Mackay's got the ball there right near the interchange bench, and we'll see Michael Voss standing up and Mackay's teammates barking instructions to them. Ball goes to Owies there. You can see that. He's saying, kick it back because Saad's free. You've got to hit that target. That ball cannot hit the ground. If that hits the target, Saad's got to find basically one more uncontested mark and game over. The fact that he was forced to play on, kick to a contest, then Melbourne bring the ball down and Carlton 3-on-1 here should mark this footy. They don't. You go to a stoppage. It gives Melbourne and Max Gawn with his leadership time to set up. They had space around that stoppage. Carlton, unfortunately, weren't able to get an extra behind the ball, which they should have in that moment, and that led to the Cozzy Pickett moment. But without lumping it on one player, always just has to hit that kick to Saad. You can't be missing unpressured kicks like that. To miss, hit the ground, play on. In essence, that cost them the game. It
was a remarkable fourth quarter up until that point. The game had been a slog for the first three quarters. It sort of broke open in the last term. The Blues found themselves 2 kicks in front with just about 2 minutes to go, but they couldn't hold on.
Yeah, they did, and it was some unheralded players tonight. Jack Martin bobs up and kicks 3. We're going to see unbelievable contested mark here from Ben Brown, who didn't look like it all night. He ran under the ball time and time again, but he took that big mark and kicked a big goal. We're going to see from the stoppage, the Blues were able to match a much star-studded Melbourne midfield. And then Max Gawn sends this one in to the hero of the night, really, who I thought, Jake Melksham. And we'll hear a little bit more about him, but I think he's going to be our Saturday star.
He is our Saturday star, thanks to Taylor Made. He had a great night. 4 goals from 15 disposals, 7 marks, 4 contested marks, including that one we just saw, and 10 score involved.
He'd be hungry, wouldn't he? And he's playing hungry. He didn't play in the premiership last year. And some of these goals, this is not just 4 goals, this is 4 really good goals. And to be fair, had some other opportunities. So missed tackle there, gets out of trouble and kicks a goal. He looked their most dangerous forward on the ground. Look at his, I guess, his cleverness to get to the front of that pack and finish. He was strong in the air, he was good on the ground, and he did it in a crumbing way. And I just like the way he goes about it. He gives it a bit of bite and a bit of aggression. When Fritsch didn't look like it, certainly Ben Brown, for the most part, didn't look like it tonight. And Jackson had a couple of marks inside 50, but wasn't able to convert. So he was the star for Melbourne.
21 of Melbourne's 23 premiership players playing tonight. Jake Melksham was one of the ones who didn't play. Jaden Hunt, the other, both had big moments in that last quarter. Carlton now needs to win against Collingwood next week to confirm its place in the top 8. We'll head across to the West now, where the Derby was played. Fremantle got over the line, their 3rd straight Derby victory, and it was on the back of Sean Darcy's efforts. He was the Glendenning Allen medalist.
Yeah, he's a big man, isn't he? And he plays like a big man. So some of his numbers, 16 disposals, 57 hit-outs. He had 6 tackles. But this is what I liked about his game, like his ability to drop back, almost sort of old-school ruckman style, kick behind the play. Unbelievable tap there to Akers, who kicks an important goal. Look, West Coast hung around for the most part of the night, but in the end it was the leadership in the midfield led by that man, big Sean Darcy, who I wonder how it's going to go next year. I mean, I love that sort of stuff. And there he is receiving the medal. But with Jackson coming in, we think how that will disrupt and affect his performance, because I still don't know what their forward line structure is going to be at Fremantle. And once again, their forwards didn't have a big night tonight.
Yeah, it was a fiery game. West Coast, to their credit, held on for large parts of it, but there was a few melees. It was like the derbies of old over in the West, and Caleb Serong even gave away a 150-metre penalty once.
Yeah, I'm not sure where this has been from West Coast. One of the poorest teams we've seen ever in the history of AFL football. 2 wins with a percentage of 61 just in front of North Melbourne, and they've decided to wait until round 22 to show some character. So, look, they've got a lot of soul searching to do at the end of the year. There's no doubt their standards have slipped amongst their senior players, but yeah, they flew the flag for a little bit tonight, but what does it mean in the end? It's a bit embarrassing, really, that they've waited that long to do it.
You wanted to put the heat on a couple of their senior players. They had 9 premiership players tonight, plus Nick Nat.
Well, this is where it's at for me. It's not the younger players that haven't played a lot of footy. It's Nick Nat Nui letting Darcy lead up here. Look at the lack of physicality on him. He's not even facing him, no body contact on Darcy. That's what you do in a warm-up drill at training. So really ordinary from Nat Nui. This from Gaff. Hospital handball because he's looking for the 1-2. Bang. Causes a turnover there. It's just a rubbish possession from Andrew Gaff, who had a really poor couple of moments here. This is late in the second quarter, scores a level, turnover there. I mean, if Andrew Gaff isn't hitting his targets, what value is he for Fremantle? That's what he's in the side to do, because he's not going to go inside and win contested footy. And then again, so look, I think the standards have absolutely slipped at West Coast. We've seen Yo, I think, be out of shape, get injured. No doubt Tim Kelly's had another substandard year. McGovern always gets injured. I question, the professionalism of some of their group, and that was on display again tonight, and it really hurt them.
We'll head to Marvel Stadium now, where the Western Bulldogs only just kept its season alive. It beat GWS by 5 points. But I tell you what, it made a slog of it in the last quarter.
It was a hard watch.
It was a very hard watch.
It was a hard watch. It was only really the third quarter that was worth watching. Just the skill errors and the lack of composure here under not a lot of pressure. So, look, if the Western Bulldogs are to make the 8, you're not sure they're going to do anything, really, on the back of this performance. Look at the score, 62-57. And the Giants weren't great either. I mean, they tried to play in a controlled fashion, which we'll touch on in a moment. But Taylor here, the last roll of the dice, no composure, hack kick. Bailey Dale takes a very good mark to save the game. But in the end, the skill level was pretty poor, and both sides found it really difficult to score.
I'll tell you what, they kicked 9 goals for the game. 4 of them came in a little 5-minute burst in the third quarter. This is where the match was won, essentially, for the Dogs.
So was this man Tim English for me. I thought he's outstanding, and not many ruckmen can do that, get to the front and finish. So he then went back to the centre-bounce. He set up this goal. Bailey Smith was awesome, and Williams finishes this one. So it was this little run here at a pivotal part of the game where I thought Tim English gave them the momentum from the centre-bounce. Another centre-bounce goal here, and doesn't Bailey Smith love this? I thought he was pretty solid again and getting back to the form that he had shown before he was suspended at the start of the year. And then Williams bobs up and kicks another really important goal again. So his 2 goals in that patch were vital, but I just thought it was Tim English was the one that got them going today for the Dogs, and had a pretty good season, Tim English. And if not for a bit of injury in the games that he would have missed, his name would be thrown up for All-Australian selection.
There was a little bit of Terry Wallace basketball-style footy here tonight. 165 marks the Giants took. It was the 12th most marks in an AFL game, the most of any team this season.
Right from the start as well. So, look, first 20 seconds of the game, the Bulldogs hardly touched the footy, and they were just happy to let the Giants do this. And I don't really blame the Western Bulldogs for this, because nothing really here was going to be that threatening. The only thing it does, it just zaps a little bit of your energy when you're forced to defend the ground like this. And let's face it, it's pretty boring when you don't have the footy in your hands. So, yeah, unbelievable to think that they took that many marks. Fremantle last week against the Western Bulldogs took a lot of marks, but they were a bit more threatening with this. And in the end, the ball goes long down the line where it probably could have gone to 10 marks prior. But then you get this, Riley, which you're frustrated with. Because
the game's there to be won, and you need to take it on, and they didn't.
Correct.
So you've got 4 men in the corridor that have a free run of goal, and you go wide because that's what you've been conditioned to do for the entirety of the game.
So you go there. And it would be an over-adjustment, you would think, from Mark McVeigh's coaching, because when he did take over, they were all-out attack. Then they really struggled to score, and it feels like they've adjusted too far. And in the end, probably that lack of dare cost them scoring opportunities and the ability to win the game.
The Dogs now need to beat Hawthorn next week, and then rely on things going well for them in the Collingwood-Carlton game to make the top 8. We'll head to the ladder now. This is how it looks after a pretty pivotal day of footy.
So what happens here? Take me through this.
I think Richmond has settled, given their fixture in the last 2 games. Carlton needs to beat Collingwood, because I don't think you can rely on Hawthorn beating the Western Bulldogs next week. And
top
it's only
4. What about that Melbourne-Brisbane game next week?
Yeah, it's massive. for top 4, I mean, Collingwood for Carlton's massive as well, for Collingwood's top 4 hopes, let alone for Carlton's top 8 hopes. So there's plenty happening. St Kilda almost certainly out given what's happened to them, especially on Friday night in that defeat. So a lot to play out. We will head to our Amy Clangers now. We'll start at Marvel Stadium. Have a look at this. Lockie Hunter chasing one of these poor skill errors that we've spoken about heaps. Almost does the plank on the fence and then has to go straight into it because Josh Kelly plays on.
Josh Kelly didn't let him recover there, did he? And then we're seeing a double Amy Clanger here. The drop mark, chest mark from Menegola, and I'm not sure what Marbiel is doing here, but he thinks it's funny, and he's about 40 points down with 4 minutes to go on a disastrous night for Gold Coast. Whose shoe falls off?
I'm just looking here. I'm trying to find out.
I think it's Schonberg.
Is it Harry? It's Harry Schoenberg's shoe falls off. Now look at this. Dane Zorko's had a shocker. Drops everything that St Kilda's passed on. St Kilda does the pre-match gift passing on. The ceremony's there, and they've dropped it, and then he gives it to the runner, and the runner goes, I'm
going to drop it as well.
That's no good for him. All right, we'll go to Marvel Stadium on Friday night, where Brisbane got over the line against the Saints, all but ending their chances. How good was Cam Rayner?
He's arrived. He's absolutely arrived. And to be fair, I reckon he's had a really important season. Value for touch. He's not someone who gets big numbers, but huge last quarter, kicked the 3 goals, and he was the absolute class. Can't wait to see him move into the midfield and spend some more time there. But this was the story of the night, wasn't it? Big Max King kicking 0 goals, 5, and missed a lot of sitters. Clearly, it sort of infected his mind. And then this was the counter-attack on the back of that miss there. And we'll see Joe Danaher run into an open goal after a great kick from Lachie Neale. The camera goes back to Max King, and you really did feel for him. You felt like he had the weight of the world on his shoulders, because it then infected his teammates as well, and it was contagious.
Yeah, they missed a couple. He kicked 0 goals, 5. Max King, as you mentioned, which wasn't great. Cam Rayner, he's had a great second half of the year. He could be a massive player for them in the finals.
I think everyone needs a player like him, or wants one. Not everyone's got one, though. Like he's very likeable, and I like the energy that he brings. And I just reckon they have the best small forwards in the comp, Brisbane, and that gives me some hope that they can win the premiership. So Rayner, Cameron, Bailey, Zorko, Link, McCarthy, when they bring that intensity like they did for patches of that game, it's just no one really has that level of talent in their front half. And then you put in Danaher and McStay and Hipwood, and you go, well, this forward line, I don't know. I still get the feeling it's capable of going deep into September. That was a really impressive win, I thought, because their record away from home against a pretty solid St Kilda in the second half was impressive.
St Kilda has had its chances, as we've mentioned. Max King kicked 0 goals, 5. This is how he stacks up against the rest. For players with 20-plus goals this year and scoring accuracy below 55%. Now, the interesting part of this list, Kane, is that Max King's the only key forward on it. The rest of them are small forwards. Gets most of his shots from set shots. Is clearly having some issues, though.
Yeah, it's been an issue right from the start, hasn't it, of his career, and it's really the only thing that is going to hold him back. Now, we might hear from Brett Ratton in a moment, but you can practice as much as you like. If you're practicing the wrong technique, it's not going to do you any good.
No.
So it feels like his technique is all lost. There's no momentum through the football. I think he's too fidgety with the ball in his hands when he's running in. So there's the technical flaw. Now, if he's practicing the technical flaw, then there's no point to it. So they need to take some responsibility for the coaching that he's had.
So Brett Ratton saying after the game they won't rely on outside help. They'll back themselves internally.
That's a joke. Like they had an opportunity to do that. He reached out to Matthew Lloyd. The club said no. I thought they were really precious, which I said at the time. And now they're still doubling down on that. That's been 12 months since that. In fact, over 12 months, and it hasn't improved. So the pressure and the scrutiny needs to go on whoever's teaching him, whether that is Jared Ruffhead or whoever is down there working closely with him at the Saints. But put your ego aside and get the external help in that he needs, because that's cost you a spot in the finals potentially.
We'll have a look at St Kilda's scores from stoppage, because there's a huge correlation of when they win that battle, they win the game. They're 10-1 when they've won scores from stoppage this year. They're 1-8 when they've lost, and they lost pretty convincingly last night.
Yeah, they did, and I thought it was big Oscar McInerney that got him going. And if there is a better ruckman or better informed ruckman in the game at the moment, I'd be really surprised. I think he's the informed ruckman of the comp. He was awesome last week against Carlton, and he was awesome again on Friday night against a very good ruckman in Rowan Marshall. But once again, 5 clearances. I feel like he's able to clear the space with his hit out better than any other ruckman in the game, and really giving Brisbane's midfields some momentum.
We'll head to the Adelaide Oval now, where the Crows won their 3rd straight game. This time it was over the Kangaroos, and it was Darcy Fogarty who took this game by the scruff of its neck.
Yeah, he did, didn't he? What a back half of the year that he's having. He just the difference in the level of confidence that he's playing. Well, this guy's playing Sanford for a fair chunk of the last couple of seasons, Darcy Fogarty, but now just looks like he belongs at the level. And I was questioning whether he had the physical attributes to make it. Did he have the agility? Did he have the endurance? I mean, they tried to play him as a defender at Adelaide.
Yeah.
Then they tried to make him a midfield, so they weren't even sure. So it wasn't just us, but he's attacking the footy. He's kicked the 28 goals since round 11 this year, and he's one of the informed forwards in the competition. So there's what's happened since round 11. Only Jeremy Cameron and Charlie Curnow playing in much stronger sides than what Fogarty is playing in. So next year, once again, had a good pre-season last year, another massive pre-season. He should be targeting 50, 55 goals next year. I think that's really realistic with how accurate a set shot he is.
It's a pretty good forward line when you throw in Riley Thilthorpe. You've got Taylor Walker there. You might have Josh Rochelle and Isaac Rankin.
Oh, it's a brilliant front six. I still think they're thin through the midfield, so I think that's an area they still need to target. But look, the rebuild's looking a little bit better at Adelaide. They've won 3 in a row. They've got a good opportunity in the showdown against Port Adelaide next week as well to finish the season strongly. There
was a great story at North Melbourne, who was pretty competitive throughout this game, but Ben Cunnington making his return to AFL football after a recurrence of a testicular cancer diagnosis. This is Ben speaking after the game.
Oh, mate, it's huge. Especially where we've come from, and Belinda's been right there from the start. We had 3 little kids. We just had a newborn, and then about a week later I started chemo. So she's been a rock, been there every bit of it. So I honestly couldn't have got back without her. And then she's cried about 2 or 3 times in our whole life, and to see her in tears, it wasn't the best prep, but it was good just to take it all in and appreciate where we've been.
It was fantastic to see him back. He was obviously quite emotional about it. They've missed him. I think it's gone a little bit under the radar that he's North Melbourne's best player, and he hasn't played throughout the entirety of the season. So it was great to see him back.
Yeah, I'm not really sure what to say other than that. It's just inspirational to hear him speak, because he doesn't speak a lot either.
Yeah.
Doesn't do a lot of media, so likes to keep a low profile. Just absolutely universally loved. And whilst they didn't get the result, I thought his performance was really strong, a typical Ben Cunnington performance. So well done to North Melbourne, his family, and him and Sam Doherty this year have been probably the stories of the game for me.
It's been a great story for both of them. Jason Horne-Francis was dropped going into this one. He played VFL today against Coburg, had 29 disposals, which was the most on the ground. It was pretty good, but again dropped for a lack of professionalism from the Kangaroos.
So missing eyes bars and things like that. Now, it must have been more than that. It must have built up to that, because I feel like that's a pretty harsh penalty just for missing an ice bar. You get dropped in the game, particularly when your side's going to Adelaide, which would have been an important fixture for him. So look, once again, it's been a disappointing first season for him. It's been frustrating, but he's going to be a player. We know it, because you just get the confidence out of how much he loves the contest and what a competitor he is. So he is going to get there, and North Melbourne are going to make sure he gets there a bit quicker than perhaps just letting him float through for 2 or 3 years, as a lot of players do. Hopefully that is the catalyst for him for the penny to drop and really have a huge pre-season and be the player that we know he can be.
We're at Metricon Stadium now, where Geelong, barring Collingwood winning its last 2 games by about 200 points each, sewed up the minor premiership, and it was all on the back of Tyson Stengel's work in the first quarter. He had 9 disposals and 3 goals to quarter time.
Recruit of the year, perhaps the most underpaid player in the game for value for what he's giving Geelong, but full credit to, firstly, his Sandford club, the Eagles, Jade Sheedy, and for them taking him at the time. And he worked and played in the premiership at the Eagles last year, and then to Geelong for identifying him and working with Eddie Betts. And this is what you get. You can see how much his teammates love him. Every time he kicks a goal or makes a mistake, they all get around him. He's been a real bonus for them. And once again, in All-Australian contention. Who would have thought that 12 months ago? It's an unbelievable story, and he was the one that got them going. But, I mean, they smashed the Suns, didn't they? A really disappointing Suns, who are absolutely limping to the finish line. So, minus 29 inside 50s, minus 25 for contested. They've been admirable this year, but once again, their back half of the year has been really disappointing for Stewie Dew.
Isaac Rankin taken off late in this one with a shoulder injury. He was great beforehand. He showed exactly why he's one of the competition's most sought-after players. But is this the last time we see him in a Suns jumper?
Well, you're my trade man. What's happening? It feels like it.
I get the sense that it is. If he doesn't play next week, obviously he came off late with that shoulder injury. If he doesn't play next week, I get the sense it's the last time he's played in this Gold Coast jumper. And that's a shame for the Suns, because the last sort of 6 weeks or so, you've just really seen him start to put it together a bit more.
No, you have. You've seen the talent, and that there he is going down. Saw the trainer motion that it's a shoulder injury. So whether he plays next week or not, we're not sure at the moment. But absolutely, feels like it could be the last time we see him, which will be a shame.
I head to the rest of the round now, and if today was big, tomorrow's going to be just as big. Richmond can sew up its finals hopes with a victory over Hawthorn, and then Sydney Collingwood in that top
How
four
good?
bout.
How good is that? And let's see how Collingwood cope with a bit of a smaller ground, and no doubt Sydney will come after a few of their players. I expect Nick Dacos to get tagged for the first time in his career, so it'll be interesting to see how he goes against Ryan Clark. So I think John Longmire will send him to them. And yeah, it's going to be a fascinating contest if they continue to surprise me, the Pies. Let's see if they can keep it going.
Get to our one more thing now. Gary Ablett, his two sides playing off against each other tonight in Geelong and Gold Coast. Who do you reckon he was going for? He's got the half scarf on.
He's probably going for Gold Coast. They probably need a little bit more help than what his old Geelong side do, who are flying, but just reacquainting himself with a teammate of his, Joel Selwood. What a player. The best player that I've seen, certainly in my era, and hardest to stop. So it's good to see him say that he's prepared and happy to work with Matt Rowell as well, if he wanted to. So that's one that Matt Rowell should absolutely follow up on.
Who wins tomorrow, St Kilda or Collingwood?
Sydney or Collingwood? I'm going to go Sydney at the SCG.
Yeah, I agree. All right, thanks for your time, Kane.
Good on you, mate.
We'll see you next week on The Round So Far.